We wanted to get married. We wanted to get married in the church. We wanted our kids to be a part of it because we wanted them to know that, yes, mommy and daddy's marriages did not work out the first time.
Right.
And things have been done in a very unconventional way, but marriage is still sacred.
Oh, my
And it's
gosh.
still a beautiful thing. And it's
So
still
true.
Yeah.
And the Lord can work all things out.
Restore it all.
And
That is so true.
and restore and redeem.
Hi, I'm Caroline Howard, a biblical counselor and certified life breakthrough coach.
And I'm Chris Oneth, marriage and family therapist and executive director of Downey Park Counseling Associates.
Welcome to Our Next Question, where we attempt to answer the questions of life through conversations in psychology and Christianity.
Remember, this is a place of discovery and definitely not the final answer.
We're back. Caleb said we can't banter, but it's kind of natural, Caleb. We're so
We
sorry.
can't help it. We
You
got to ease people into
Put your
things.
microphone back in front of you so you can...
Here we go.
So this is part two.
Part
of
two.
A two-part What's Your Story with Stephen and Morgan. And this has some pretty heavy topics. So you might want to use some discretion when having your kids listen. Don't until you've heard it, and then if you feel it's okay, then by all means.
Yeah.
But had a great time with them. What a great couple!
What a great couple! What an amazing story! I cannot wait for you guys to hear part two and hear the ending. And I'm proud of us for keeping it together.
It was awesome. There are several times I wanted to burst out in tears.
Ditto.
And this again, the story has so many elements to it of being on the precipice of disaster, yet the Lord being faithful and
Always.
continuing to come along, and that those stories play out again in our faith, and we need to tell them so that we can, as a whole community, shout out praises to our Lord.
Amen. Yeah. Here's part two, everybody.
My dad, I'll never forget what he told me. He was like, honey, this is big news, but babies are blessings from the Lord.
Wow.
And it's not a mistake.
Wow.
You make me cry. And so he's like, it's just a baby. You've done this twice already.
Oh my gosh.
You can do it again and we'll help you.
Okay. I mean, but you struggled for a second.
We did. So I had that conversation. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, they're going to be there for me. I mean, everybody went through their own gamut of feelings. I think everyone was upset, naturally. They're like, wow, you've made your life a lot harder. So cool.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thumbs up there. This is, how are you going to figure this all out? All the questions start to come. And I'm like, and by the way, I need to mention my family lives in Massachusetts.
Oh.
I don't have family here.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So I'm here on my own.
So helping out looks
gosh.
different.
Right. Exactly. It's going to be mostly emotional support by phone.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I do have my dear surrogate mom out here who I was living with at the time with the boys. So that happens. And then I wasn't going to tell, my friends are like, don't tell that guy. Steven, that guy.
That guy.
You were that
I'm
guy.
that guy already.
Don't tell him.
He went by that
You
guy
went
for a
from the hungry
moment.
firefighter to that guy.
It's that guy.
Very quickly. And they were like, don't tell him. Don't tell, And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I went through this. Do I tell him? Do I not tell him? Do I tell him? Do I not tell him?
Oh,
Because I
wow.
don't know him. He was
Right.
sort of a stranger
Exactly.
to me.
Yeah.
Okay, we were
Exactly.
neighbors, but I didn't really know him. I had a few encounters with him where, hello, oh, you're a new neighbor. He had just moved onto that street as I was moving off of the street.
Okay.
So it was in the transition time.
Okay.
So, and again, also we lived on opposite ends. So there wasn't a whole lot of interaction, but I remember sitting in my attorney's office, and my attorney's like, no, you need to tell the dad.
Okay.
I remember puking into the trash can.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
So that's when I called him.
Yep. And you had text me
Okay, yeah.
and
Hey.
said, hey, I really need to talk. And I'm like, automatically just start sweating. I'm like, oh no, this can only mean one thing. Oh no,
Wow.
And he said,
So you knew.
he said to me,
I knew.
is it what I think it is? I said, I just need to tell you, and he's like, I would rather see you in person. So he said, can you come to my house?
Good.
And I
But
said,
wait, the last time he invited you to
oh
his
yeah.
house,
Well,
go back.
girl, it already been knocked up. So what more could happen?
Yeah, what other shenanigans can you get into?
Make it more official.
So,
Try that again, pal.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember it better this time.
no more red
Can't
stuff.
drink anymore, so now what are you going to do?
Yeah, right.
So I go over there, and he said that he was about to puke in the sink. Right?
Oh.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And he says, well, we can't keep this. We can't keep it. Sorry. We can't. Like, I can't do this.
Wow.
I'll never forget the look on his face. He was sweating, and it looked white as a ghost.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
I just got really overwhelmed. Like, I didn't expect that. And so, yeah.
I think it was just, for me, it was a whole flood of emotions. Just,
I'll bet.
Shocking.
Just a big shock, you know.
Well, just I could imagine being bombarded with all these different things and not knowing which end is up. It's like being thrown by an ocean wave.
Yeah, it's like, what do we do?
And I had already processed it for
totally
a week or so.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm like, where do we go? What do we do? How are we going to move forward with this? How, you know, what's the solution?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never been in that situation, you know, what do you call unplanned pregnancy?
Right.
Or a crisis
Or a
pregnancy.
crisis
Right.
pregnancy.
Right.
I've never been in that situation before, been part of one before, and never been, I've always been pro-life. I've never, you know, even thought about abortion or anything like that.
Isn't that something?
And you're put in this situation, you're like, well, what's the best case scenario? I mean, how is it good for her? How is it good for me?
Right.
What kind of life would it be for him?
Sure.
And so we were talking, you know, it was really early as far as the
how far along I was.
how far along she
I
was.
was like only around 6 or so weeks.
Maybe not even.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, what do you think? Like, do you want to make an appointment? Do you want to at least just go and figure out what the process is like?
And he is referring to going to Planned Parenthood.
Right.
So a little bit of backstory. I've spent the majority of my adult life a pro-life activist. I've been in DC protesting. I've prayed on Capitol Hill. I've done a lot of advocacy
rubber
work
meets the road.
for women and children because abortion is traumatic regardless. And
they never tell you that, do they?
No, they don't. That's the side of the story that you don't hear a lot about.
Absolutely.
I have walked through a lot of women's post-abortive journeys through different agencies in our area. And I understand and am aware of the full scope of what this all means.
Yes.
But then I never expected to be a woman or mom in a crisis pregnancy myself.
Yes. Yes.
And here I am looking at this stranger that I had sex with one night.
Right.
And now we have to make this huge life-altering decision.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. No, who am I? Like, I don't do this. I don't advocate for, abortion. Like, there's other ways. And I'm having this massive moral, war going on in my heart and mind. And I'm looking at this poor guy who's been through hell for so long. And he still is in hell with his divorce. And I feel so horrible. And I feel pressure to like, okay, well, maybe this, and then I start to question my own ethics and morals. And I'm like, well, maybe if there's no heartbeat, I might be able to live with that choice.
Okay.
So he's like, can we just make an appointment at Planned Parenthood and go talk to them?
Right.
And we did.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I didn't probably sleep for days until we went to this appointment. Like, I was in turmoil. My gut was turning inside out. Like, I was constantly thinking about this and like, how am I going to be able to do this? I don't think I can do this. How will I be able to tell my parents?
Right.
The shame.
Oh, gosh.
Is so isolating and so destructive in times like that. And I just thought, okay, you don't have to make any decisions. Just go to the appointment. We're not talking at this time, so we didn't really communicate much.
I see.
We showed up at Planned Parenthood in Modesto, and I see him again, and I start to bawl my eyes out. I pretty much cry the entire time we are there.
Okay.
We go in, and when you do go into Planned Parenthood for an abortion, the female can only go back by herself. They do all the safety questions and checks, like, are you being coerced?
Right.
Are you being forced? Are you being pressured?
Wow.
And he's in the waiting room thinking, this is happening.
Yeah.
Again, a whole flood of emotions.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
I'm here at this spot in my life.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
She's having to go through
Wow.
a similar situation, but probably even on a much greater scale, and just the nerves
Oh my gosh.
and just everything just firing,
Yes.
just mentally, physically.
And all I can obsess on in my own mind is if there's no heartbeat, then the baby's not alive, and I'm
Yeah.
starting to wrestle and grapple with the
Yes.
whole like moral argument of it all. And like as a believer, as a Christ follower, like, how am I going to be eternally held accountable for this choice?
Sure.
And I was aware that he had just found God, and I wasn't really sure where he was with faith.
Wow.
And I felt like, my life flashing before my eyes.
Sure.
But more so the baby inside of me.
Oh,
like,
my
I hold
gosh.
this child's life in my hands here. And so I go into this appointment. They go through they have to do several different checks to make sure that you have enough iron, because
Okay.
as you miscarry and you chemically pass a pregnancy, you bleed a lot.
Oh my gosh.
And they're going through these horrific steps of like everything I was going to have to go through. And I'm just weeping.
Oh my
And
word.
The crazy thing is I wasn't far enough along for a procedure to really be effective. They wanted to wait until I was a little bit further along.
Oh my word.
I look back at that and it doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
And I'd like to figure out exactly why they told me no that day.
Wow.
But I will tell you this. The professionals I dealt with at Planned Parenthood did tell me, if you want to keep your child, we will help you do that too.
Wow.
It was not
Okay.
at all what I expected.
Isn't that something?
We can
not
give
what you hear
No,
about
Right.
it's not what
Right.
you think
Yeah.
they're going to say. They
Yeah.
said we can give you prenatal care, and we can help you support you keep your child too,
Wow.
if that is
Okay.
something you want. The doctor I had, I forget what her name was, but I'll never forget. She had beautiful white hair, and I'm
Wow.
like, this is not what I expected you to say.
Isn't that something? And you never would have known that had you not been in this
Exactly.
position.
And I told her, I said, I'm a pro-life activist. I have supported women for years. And she's just like, well, how cool. What a cool story. And I was like, that's the first time I was like,
Oh my
could this be a
gosh.
cool story? I was like, okay.
Wow. More understanding and forgiving than a lot of Christians.
Exactly. And so it blew my mind. And I said, I do want to keep I can't live with myself. I said, I cannot live with myself. I said, I can live with myself with it being a hard life. I know what I'm choosing, but I
Right.
know I can do that hard life of raising this child
That's
alone.
right. That's
Because
right.
I didn't know if Stephen was going to want to be a part of it. He
Right.
still had a choice too.
Right.
So I knew that I would be able to handle that God would give me what it took. And
right.
so, but those thoughts were there, and they said, why don't you come back in a few weeks and you can make your final decision. So I come out and I said, I'm sorry, but I can't do it today. They talk to him and explain, and then we make another appointment
Okay.
for a few weeks later. Okay. And then we get into the car and we're like, okay, well, I guess a few weeks. And then I pull up for the appointment, right? And I'm sitting in the
This is
parking
a few
lot.
weeks later?
A few weeks
Okay.
later
Okay.
in the parking lot of Planned Parenthood, and I'm waiting for him to show up. And I feel like it's a holy moment because I'll never forget this. It's like in that moment, the Lord opened up heaven and he showed me what the future was going to hold, and that this child was a blessing, and that he is a gift. His life matters, and that the Lord holds his life as much as he holds mine.
Right.
And so I knew that he would make it possible and work it all out. And I had this entire total body peace that it's like my son's life flashed before my eyes.
Oh my
and I would never
gosh.
regret keeping him. I would
Wow.
only regret letting him go.
Wow.
And so I was like, that's it. That's it. I've made my decision.
Right.
I got, nope, I'm going to have to tell him sorry. So I texted him and I said, are you on your way to the appointment? He said, I'm getting ready to leave. I said, don't come. I'll meet you there. And he's like, why? And I said, I'll explain to you when I get there. Because you were in Turlock. So we met in a back alley
Okay.
to hide.
Yeah. Oh, so seriously,
We did, seriously.
to hide.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not going to laugh at that anymore.
Right? Well, no. It's just because it's kind of a sad reality of the situation we were in.
Yeah. Okay.
But I made the decision and I said, look, I have made my decision. I'm very sorry, but I am not moving forward with abortion.
Wow.
And he got pretty upset, understandably.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of fear there, a lot of confusion,
Yeah.
a lot of what the heck is, oh boy. Yeah.
So I said to him, look, I understand you also have a choice here. You are completely free to move on with your life and never see me again. There's 9 months left for you to figure it out.
Wow.
So my parents really encouraged me to pursue Stephen being in the baby's life because he was the dad if he wanted to be. Okay. And my parents encouraged me to keep that door open to him if that's a door he wanted to go through.
Wow.
A doorway he wanted to go through. So I told him that. I said, this is your choice. It's up to you. I get that you're in the middle of starting a divorce and all of the things that go along with it. And we have 9 months. I'm going to do my part. I'll take care of the baby and all of that. You are free to stay and be a part of his life. We didn't know he was a boy at the time.
Right.
Or not. So
Okay.
It's your choice. And so he said, okay. And that's the last time I saw him in person. That was, probably in October.
Yeah.
Time.
Yep.
Yep. And then I didn't see him again until February of the following year.
We had
Because-
exchanged a few texts here and there.
Yeah.
Like around Christmas time, things like that. But during this whole time, she was going to appointments, for prenatal care and with her OB. And I wasn't really a part of that process until after the new year.
Yeah, he was taking his time. Because like I said, you have 9 months to decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, during this time, she was a little bit further along in her divorce process, and she was now working on trying to get a home established and figured out her housing situation. At that point, I had moved in with my parents.
Okay.
And that's where I was staying with my two kids at the time. Well, not at the time, but Grayson and Ellie,
Right.
And then there was a point in time where she's like, I don't know what to do.
I had a turn for the worse in my divorce where I wasn't sure I was going to have the ability to provide housing for my kids that I had already. I was kind of starting to panic, finances, things like that.
Right.
Things weren't lining up.
Sure.
So I started to think about maybe adoption is a good choice.
Wow.
Because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to financially provide and
Sure.
take care of the baby as I initially thought. And so Bethany Christian Services in Modesto, I know of them and several individuals that work there. And I thought if I was going to do this, I want to do it this way.
Okay.
So I made an appointment. I reached out to him and said, look, I may have to consider adoption. I may not be able to move forward like I initially thought. And I
had also, I think, suggested maybe that at that time too, going along with the adoption process. I had worked with a few people, one in particular guy that him and his wife had been trying to get pregnant for years and just were not successful.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, these good people are not able to have children themselves. What a gift to these kinds of people that we could provide, and what a life that this child could potentially have.
Right.
With this family that's already established and has nothing but love and support to give. What kind of position are we in to provide that kind of life?
Wow.
We're still figuring out our own stuff.
Did you know that your therapist used to head up Bethany?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Lynette's time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh man, she's
how cool.
She's a superstar. So yeah. Side note.
No, that's really neat. All the pieces.
Yes.
So we go, we sit down with social worker, start talking about the process of what adoption looks like. And I was pretty adamant that I needed an out-of-state adoption because I could not live with knowing my child was around. And I was not going to, if I couldn't handle that fact.
Sure,
like if I run into them, this would be way too hard for me.
Oh my gosh.
So there's actually like books with adoptive families that are ready to adopt that you can kind of shop the right family.
Right.
What a process.
What a process that is.
And you're like, wow, I think these people would be great.
Boy.
They all look
But
great.
how? I mean, how?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's-
No, good
and
point.
So
I'm like, I didn't know
Eeny,
this.
meeny, miny. Wow.
Right. Well, this person's an electrician and she's a school teacher, and here's their resumes,
And all of them wanting a child.
and here's pictures, and here's
That's intense.
pictures with kids
Yeah.
and families, and their mom and dad are great grandparents, or and it's
looking
just
at potential siblings this child was going to have. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wow. You guys went through the gamut.
And I'm like, I just start weeping again. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
There's no way. I've already gone through so much loss in my life.
Okay.
I felt like I had lost everything at that point, and all I had left was my kids.
Wow.
And this baby, I had fought so hard to keep my baby.
Yeah.
And that's how it felt. That there's no way. And I recalled how the Lord promised me that He would give me everything I needed to keep my baby. And I just kind of closed the book, and I looked at the social worker and said, I'm not doing this.
Wow.
I'm sorry. And I looked at Stephen and said, you might be upset, but I'm very sorry. This baby's mine. I'm keeping it. And I knew it was a boy. And I said, I'm keeping him, and I can't go through this. I can't give him up. I'm so sorry for wasting everybody's time today.
Wow.
And social worker is just like, no, you're not wasting anybody's time. This
Oh
is
my
what this is
gosh.
for. This is why we do it this way.
part of the process.
Yeah.
And he was very, his body language, he was very distant. He didn't want to sit next to me. He was just like...
Stephen. You were talking about Stephen.
Stephen, yeah.
I didn't know the social worker.
Oh, yeah, Stephen. And he just was, it was a scary thing.
Yeah,
You don't know
absolutely.
this
Yes, he's
person.
going
They're
through his
stranger.
process.
Right.
And here we are in another huge precipice of decision making.
Yeah.
And I said, look, again, this is my final decision. I'm going to have to figure this out, but I trust in the Lord to be faithful and provide everything that's needed.
Wow.
And I sort of just said, that's it for me. Anything else? And I'm going to go. Because I remember telling my mom I was considering adoption. She's like, Morgan, I don't know if I could do that. I think I'd take that baby out of the hospital and run.
Wow.
That's how I would feel too. And
Wow.
so I just was like, that's it. I can't do this. And so he remained in the office, I think, for a minute talking to some people. And then he asked to speak to me in the parking lot. And he kind of looked at me and he said, you know how you have given me this choice, to figure out if I want to be a part of this or not. And he said, if you will allow me, I would like to be the baby's dad.
Wow.
That moment in time was the turning point. And
Oh my gosh.
it was like,
It's about February.
we'll figure this out. We'll make
Stephen,
it work.
walk me through that process that you were going through when you came to that point where you're like, I'm in.
Well, I was still early in my walk with the Lord, and I think I have just seen Him work in my divorce process up to that point.
Okay.
And how I was able to, be there for my kids and protect the time that I was able to have with them.
Okay.
Going California, a single dad, divorce process, custody, all that stuff that goes through your mind.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm going to be a weekend father, and
sure.
and so knowing a little bit about that process and what things were already in place, like, okay, I've got 50-50, I've got joint custody. I've got a job that allows me
Right.
days off.
Sure. You work like 2 days out of the month, don't you?
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah. 1.5. Yeah.
I mean, they're full of terror, but
but it's got a very predictable schedule.
yeah.
And so I was able to show like, hey, I have my kids. I have set days off. This is what I can do.
Yeah, you got the best case scenario.
So it was at that moment at times like, you know, the Lord's provided for me up to this point. I'm just going to trust him in this process and let's do this. I'm going to be a part of this. I'm going to do whatever I can to
Let's co-parent.
let's
Wow.
make it work.
Wow.
And let's give him the best life that we possibly can. Oh my How it's going to look, I have no idea.
Yeah. And
You
my
know?
parents kept encouraging me again. Like, I was like, no, I'm not going to. He's out of the picture. Sorry.
But she had just bought a house.
Yeah, the Lord provided a miracle.
Wow.
And so then
It was crazy. I got the
right
house.
after that, I would say we had our first date.
Well, so that happened. And then he said, okay, I'd like to help out. What can I do to contribute? Do you need stuff for like a baby's room? Like a nursery?
She had her own house.
I had bought my
Yeah.
own house at that
Yeah.
point.
Okay.
Which is another miracle story for another time. But I said, yeah, that would be great, actually. I have a crib, and there was a few things. And he said, okay, I would like to take you to a baby store, and maybe we can get some things. And
Your first date was a baby store.
It was.
I mean,
That is-
I don't know if you want to call it a first date.
Well,
but
okay,
it's
let's
our first time getting
whatever.
to know one
we
another.
ate Chick-fil-A.
We
It was
did.
it was
Hey,
a date. It was a date.
Chick-fil-A in a baby
I
store.
loved it.
That's
You know?
the perfect pregnancy meal right there.
On a really stormy winter night.
Yeah.
Oh my
Perfect.
Yeah, it was
word.
crazy. But it was more of, okay, so if we're going to do this and co-parent, we should probably get to know one another.
Yeah.
Probably a good idea.
And I did tell him, if my baby's going to be, my baby still, right? My baby's going to be living with you in your parents' home. I would really like to see the house, if you don't mind. Meet your family that he's going
Yeah.
to be around, where you're going to have it. And so he's like,
That's-
sure. Isn't that crazy?
Hi, Mom and Dad. This is my baby mama.
And this is our love child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're in your
right.
30s, right? You're
Yeah,
in your 30s
yeah,
at this time.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was crazy. So we started to, okay, let's chat. So we started to have conversations on the phone. We didn't really date in person a lot because we didn't have time.
Right.
And then I'd say probably by the end of March, we're like, wow, you're kind of cute. I kind of like you. You're not so bad, actually.
The personalities.
The wine talking that night.
No, it
was
wasn't.
like something
No.
It
different.
was like real. Well, Luke was born. So that was like at the end of March. We started dating a month before he was born.
Oh my
Yep.
word.
Yep.
Way to put the cart before the horse, by the way.
Right.
Wait,
You know?
yeah. We're like pushing instead of pulling.
Living in the fast lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so his family was incredibly welcoming, and they were very supportive and said,
Wow.
I remember his dad saying, I have enough love to give to all of you in my heart. And so not only did his family embrace me and Luke, but also my other boys.
Oh my gosh.
And have taken all of us into the fold, and we're all Kramers now.
Wow.
And have never batted an eyelash or turned back. They've been 100% committed to supporting Stephen and I and blending our families and
Yeah.
raising Luke together.
Oh my gosh.
Same for my family. My family's been fighting for Stephen since day one.
That's right. Now, counter to some of what your friends even said back
Oh, truly, yeah.
Yeah.
My parents just felt like the best case scenario for the baby, for Luke, was that his dad was a part of his life.
Yeah.
And since my family is not here, then Luke would have a family to belong to.
Wow.
And so that was my mom's word. She really wanted Luke to have grandparents who could be a part of his daily life, you know, and his family has been all of those things. And his Aunt Stacy and Uncle Sergio, just like,
Okay.
oh, wow. Okay, now I have a family here too. So think about it. I went through the worst of losses, you know, a lot of like the worst losses you can imagine.
Yes.
Then the Lord, what I lost, the Lord has replaced tenfold.
Oh my
More than I
gosh.
could ever imagine.
There's a word for that.
And
Redemption.
truly.
Redemption. Exactly.
Yep. And so let me just tell you, it's not been easy.
Right. No.
Because blending a family of 5 children,
Wow.
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
what we don't have a big enough
two
car.
and one, and it's
Right.
like, whew.
Yeah.
All right.
There's
Well,
9 hours.
and that's kind of been the standpoint from that time moving forward. It's like, hey, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it. And we're going to blend and
We're going to do it right.
We're going to do it right. And we're not going to be his, mine, yours,
Right.
hers.
They're
it's
all
not
ours.
Ours.
It's
They're all
ours.
Oh, that's
And
Love that.
You know, it just, I think totally what's been a blessing is the kids were young. The oldest was Aaron, and he
had just turned 6.
Oh,
6?
wow.
Yeah, 5, 6.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had a 6 of, no, he was 7. A 7, 5,
What time frame are
4.
you referring to? Like, so
When
So
Luke-
how old was Luke when
Luke
you
was-
guys finally tied the knot?
Year and a half.
year and a half.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
wanted to get married. We wanted to get married in the church. We wanted our kids to be a part of it because
Right.
we wanted them to know that, yes, mommy and daddy's marriages did not work out the first time.
Right.
And things have been done in a very unconventional way, but marriage
Sure.
is still sacred.
Oh, my
and it's
gosh.
still
Yeah.
a beautiful thing. And it's
So
still
true.
Yeah.
And the Lord can work all things out
restore it all.
and
That is so true.
restore and redeem, you know.
And a lot of times, we went through a lot of judgment
Oh,
about
my
what we
gosh.
did and how things worked out. And
Lost some friendships and
Lost a
family
lot of
members
friends.
along the way.
Wow.
mostly, yeah, I didn't so much,
Okay.
but he did. And
wow.
it's been heartbreaking to watch
Wow.
him lose so many people that had been in his life.
Oh, my gosh.
Not just over this situation, but as a result of the divorce as well.
Okay.
Not all of it
Yeah.
had to do with Luke and I.
Sure,
But,
sure.
yeah, again, brokenness brings out
Yep.
the worst in people.
Right.
And so a lot of people, oh, you cheated, affair was thrown around, all these
Yeah.
kinds of words, shameful things. And it was just, I remember the pastor I had been seeing who had been supporting me through this terrible time said, look, your baby is a blessing from the Lord.
Right.
And the one night stand, if you will, is a result of brokenness.
Yes.
It is not what broke the marriage.
Right.
Right.
And it
Yeah.
set
Exactly.
it totally set all the shame free for me.
Wow.
But even if it had been the other way around, the Lord still offers forgiveness and
Yes.
restoration and will redeem.
And I think that's your story works on so many levels.
Yeah.
Like it touches so many levels
It's an
from
amazing story.
from the like, hey, yeah, she's cute. We can to oh no, like now your values and all your convictions coming into tension and being challenged, and then working through that, and then oh gosh, what am I going to do with this kid? And oh god,
Literal life or death, because we had a baby's life in our hands.
oh my, yes.
You see, it's in the balance
Yes.
here. The eternity is being weighed in this choice.
Well, and to
like,
think
okay.
that if it's quote unquote godly, that it has a very neat and tidy beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
The Bible doesn't talk about that. The Bible is all about really crazy stuff happens,
Yeah.
and then God comes in and saves.
Yes.
And that's, it's a blessing to hear this story. And yes, you're right. It's not like easy. There are consequences with our choices, with our lives, whatever we make.
Yep.
But God is so faithful.
He is.
Thank
And-
you guys so much for sharing your story.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank
Didn't I
you.
tell you?
I was going through every scenario in my head. What's he not? I couldn't even have imagined it, but I wouldn't. It was beautiful. I mean,
Thank
a
you.
really
Wow.
amazing story of redemption and what happens right when
Yeah.
you hold on to Christ.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we've just been amazed. We've been so blessed, and we're like, wow.
Wow.
We've
Yeah.
created this with the Lord. He has provided all
Wow.
of this and blessed our lives, our family,
Yeah.
our kids,
Yeah.
more than we could have ever imagined.
Truly. And
Beauty
despite-
from the
yeah.
ashes of divorce.
Right.
Absolutely. And from brokenness.
Wow.
Brokenness doesn't have to break you forever.
Nope.
It's just for a time. When you hand over your life to the Lord, He remains faithful to return back what you have lost, but way more than you could ever imagine.
Wow.
And I think that's the beauty of letting go, and the pain that can come from that is the what if. What are you going to put back that I have lost, you know?
Yeah.
And trusting, it's like walking around in the dark. It's like, okay, Lord, well, you promised this. I hope you show up.
Well,
it's expect-
and I
the
imagine so many
acceptance.
people living in shame. Something like this might have. I mean, there's a multiple.
Oh, yeah.
Like opportunities in this story to just delve into shame and
Absolutely.
then feel completely separate from the Lord and feel like even walk away from Him, right? But
Well, and we still deal with people trying to shame us to this day.
oh my gosh,
We still have to
well
deal
that
with
helps.
that. To
That
some
helps
element.
shaming people. Yeah.
It does. It's really
Yeah.
effective. And,
Yeah.
and what I have learned is that is coming from their own brokenness
Yes.
and their own resolved
Wow.
Insecurities.
insecurities and issues.
Well, that, helps with the background you have.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
but it's still hard at times.
Yeah, totally.
And our kids have to go through some of that as well.
Wow.
And so, but again, the Lord remains faithful to carry us and provide what is needed. And I do believe our family has been given favor and blessed because we refuse to give in and give up. We
Yes.
are going to fight through. We're going to
Wow.
work hard. We're going to stick together. We're going to make this work.
Yep.
You know, we're going to fight for our kids. And
Wow.
yeah.
And-
Again, clinging to the Lord throughout all of this is that's where the redemption is, right? And yeah, you're right. People's own shame wants to spread the shame, but and it's not to say that, hey, everybody go try this.
Right.
Not at
Yeah.
all. And you guys would be the first to say that.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
what you would say is absolutely cling to the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, you know, Stephen and I have owned the mistake that we made from day one. Having
Right.
a one night stand in the middle of divorce is a really bad idea, you guys. Okay. Just letting you know.
Don't
FYI.
do it.
Don't advise it.
Don't do it.
And I've apologized. We both have to our family and friends.
Wow.
It's not who we are, and we did make a mistake.
Wow.
And we own that. But again, following the life's motto of, okay, so now we're going to do the next right thing.
Yeah.
Yes, not
Yeah.
to follow up the mistake with more mistakes.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And not to fall into the shame and allow the enemy to destroy, you know, because we're all human. We made a mistake. And
Yeah.
we certainly didn't. I didn't walk in his house that night expecting all of this to happen.
Right.
So it wasn't pre-planned, sinister intentions.
Right.
Rubbing
you know?
your hands together and twisting
Yeah.
your mustache or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
a miracle that Luke's pregnancy remained and
Wow.
all of those things happened. He is meant to be here.
Yes, and he is
Yeah.
4?
He's 5.
5.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys been together since that time.
Since
Yeah.
that time, it's been
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
Yeah,
what
it
a
has
blessing.
been.
Yeah.
He's great.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you very much.
for your
Appreciate
time.
it.
Your
Story.
your story will encourage and inspire others to keep clinging to the Lord and do the next right thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
and find your people to support you. Don't
Wow.
go through this alone.
Wow.
Yeah. It's okay to ask for help and don't let shame isolate you
Wow. That is
because
true.
it will try to keep
Sure.
you.
Yep.
Sure.
And mistakes don't define you.
Wow.
That's the other
true.
thing.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yep.
Well, hey, if this has been helpful to you, by all means, I keep asking this, please leave a review and share with a friend. And thank you again, Stephen and Morgan. And Caroline, anything else?
I have to grab my mic. It was way over there.
Okay.
We'll see you all next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today as we continue our journey talking about life's many questions.
To stay connected with us, you can follow us at Downey Park Counseling on both Facebook and Instagram. You can also follow Caroline on Instagram at Relatable Caroline. And make sure you tune in next week for our next question.